Hello and welcome to a special update guide for the Introduction to Yew course. It turns out that Yew 0.20 has released. It's been a while since I've been inside of this project, so it's gonna, we're gonna have to remind ourselves from some things, but 0.20 is a major update for Yew, which means there's a lot of breaking changes. And I have seen some comments from viewers who are running into trouble because they're accidentally installing 0.20 when the course was done with 0.19. So this entire video is going to be an update guide for updating a project from 0.19 to 0.20, and hopefully it should also provide as maybe a reference for what are the differences? Like how can I just go straight to 0.20, or why did my course do the other thing? So the way this video is going to work, I'm going to put chapters for each sort of section that I'm working on, and I'm going to just do the fade in and fade out. So it's going to be multiple sort of mini video recordings together into one macro video, and hopefully can then be used as a reference. So with that, I will see you in each section. Bye. The first thing we're going to want to do is set up Docker to run our backend and run the database. Now we have a Docker compose file for it, but it's been a long time since I've run this. So if we're running into any troubles with that, we probably want to just do a full reset. And I was having a little bit of trouble just sort of like in preparation for this video going at. So let's just do that live here. So first of all, I want to do first Docker compose ps. Okay, so none of this is running. That's fine. Docker ps. Now I have, if none of those things are running, but these are still running, well, that's not a good thing. Like we want, this is supposedly part of Docker compose, so I want to take this all down. So let's stop L. Now for me, I'm okay with this. I'm going to stop all of my running Docker containers. If I do a Docker ps-a, that shows me literally everything, and it's just these two things. So I'm going to do a Docker stop. I could use the names or the container IDs. This is a little bit faster. So stop both of you. Okay, so if I do a Docker ps-a, you're okay. Yeah, so you're exited. Now I can remove them. So I'm actually gonna change that stop to an RM, and that deletes the two containers. So now if we look at it, they're all gone. Okay, let's also take a look at networks, because that's another thing that sort of hangs around and causes problems. So we have a Docker network ls. Specifically, this one here is supposed to be removed when we do a Docker compose down, but for some reason this is sort of remaining up. So I'm going to do a Docker network remove and Yew. Okay, so that's gone. Excellent. We have some volumes too. Docker volume ls. Okay, so here is the volume for my full stack Yew.rs course. This one probably is less of a reason that you have to remove. I'm going to go ahead and remove it, so it's just a full reset. The volume stores the data in the database. So as soon as we delete this, all that data is gone. I only have sort of like the test data in there, so I don't really care. But this is also one you don't necessarily want to delete just everything on until you know exactly what you're deleting. Okay, so we're going to do a Docker volume remove and this. Okay, so that's good. And then just to make sure there's no like corrupted images or something, I'm going to remove the images too. So Docker images, Now I only have these 3 ones, so it's not really that big of a deal. But let's go ahead and remove these. I'm going to do a docker rmi, so remove images, and then it's going to be the image ID or the full name. So I don't believe any of these have any requirements with each other. So no, that's pasted the previous thing. I want you, and you. Okay, so that deletes all of you, and now I don't have pretty much everything is reset. Now I've also run into a problem where running this Docker system prune can also sort of make things a little bit better. So I'm gonna just go ahead and run this as well. It's going to remove, let's see, it's going to remove all stop containers, all networks, all dangling images, and a build cache, which is probably the most important one here. Now, I guess I didn't really need to manually remove all those myself. This would have done it. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Okay, so that also reclaimed 5 gigabytes of space, 5.5 gigabytes of space. So that's nice. All right, let's start this up. So we're going to do a Docker compose. I'm going to do a profile Node.js express. This was in my previous history here. I'm going to bring it up. We'll give it a daemon mode and wait for it to complete. So, okay. Get that going. It's going to re-download the images from Docker Hub, build the images into containers, and then launch those. Guess that didn't exactly make sense. It's downloads the images, builds new images. So downloads the required images, builds new images for this specific Docker Compose files, and then launches containers from those images. That's I think a little bit better. Okay, so everything seems to be working, and then what I can do to sort of verify this, we're going to come over to Thunder Client. I'm going to go to our hello world. That should work at 404. I'm not actually sure what the route is supposed to be. Let's do this post create user. So if I create a user with this very random username, that worked. Okay, so that is going to localhost 3000. I don't have anything else up on that port, so this should be it. And that's working. Excellent. Other potential reasons that like the database could be failing or weirdness with that, make sure you don't have a database already running on port 5432, I believe is what Postgres is on. If you have a local one on that, you're going to get weirdness because that's the port we're exposing in here. There are ways around that, but I'm not. That's outside the scope of this video. All right. Okay, next we're going to start our front end and run our tests. So let's cd into the appropriate directory here. So I'm at the root of the entire sort of repo, and this is a monorepo. So we have our front end Rust Yew, and then I'm going to my solution for this. So I have a lot of stuff in here. I'm not going to update you yet. I want to make sure that everything is sort of working as it is right now. So I want to see passing tests. I want to see the project that works, and then go from there. If things are broken now and we update, we won't necessarily know if they're still broken at the end because of the update or not. Okay, so I want let's do a trunk serve. Okay, so you're running at localhost port 8080. Let me launch Firefox. Localhost 8080. Okay, so this is working. Okay, great. Now, can I create a new account? I want that you Yeah, okay. So that seems to be fine. Um, let's now launch Cypress. So Cypress, unfortunately, we have to do outside of Docker if we want to see it running, which does mean we have to have Node.js installed. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new terminal here because this one is being taken up by trunk. We're going to cd. See, I'm on the root still. So I'm going to cd into integration tests, front end tests. Here's where that Cypress is. I'm going to do an npm. I have Node.js 18 installed. That may be a little bit while since I did this. So I'm going to just do an npm install, make sure that everything is installed here. I'm going to then do an npm. I don't remember if I never set up a script for this. So we're going to do an npx Cypress open. And that will open up Cypress in its own window. Okay, so it is telling us we have to update Cypress. So we have to migrate the existing specs. We recommend automatically renaming your specs in a step. Here's why. Okay, so do this. Okay, so rename the specs for me. And rename the support file. Okay. Migrate to the new Cypress configuration file. Okay, that should still be fine. Let's do the end-to-end testing because you're configured. I'm just going to go ahead and open this in Electron. Okay, and let's run our to-do tests. And let's see, so far everything seems to be passing. And oh, that error message displays. Now this error message does wait for 31 seconds, but it's just making sure that it fades away. Okay, so everything is working. We've updated Cypress and we got the front end all up and working. Okay, so that's good. I'm happy about that. Let's see. That is everything we need to do for Cypress. Okay, so we now have this running. Let's next start working on just updating Yew. Now, we're going to run into a slight problem here, which is that if I open up one of the Yew files, so let's go into front end, Rust Yew, solution, source, let's say live.rs, we get this Rust analyzer failed to discover workspace problem here. Well, what's going on here? Unfortunately, Rust analyzer doesn't know that this is a project file. I mean, it kind of knows that it's a Rust file, but it doesn't know what's going on because it needs a workspace. Well, okay, we could create a workspace and then Rust Analyzer would work. However, I ran into on a stream, I ran into a problem where we can't then run trunk. Trunk doesn't work with workspaces. So what I'm going to do is instead of opening up the live RS over here, I'm going to keep all of this running for the Docker and I'm going to remove that trunk there. Open up a new terminal window. I'm going to cd into front end Rust Yew solution. I'm going to open up a new instance of VS Code here. So I have two versions of VS Code. I have enough memory for this, so this is going to be fine. If you have a low memory system, then I recommend quitting out of VS Code or whatever editor you're using and then opening up your editor inside of that project over there. Okay, great. So that way I still have Cypress up and running. I still have my database and my backend running in Docker. So this is now going to be Yew. So if I open up live.rs, Rust Analyzer is running. We have a root level cargo.toml, and that's the reason why this works. Now we've already run our tests, so I don't need to run those again right now. Let's just go ahead and jump into the update. So we're going to start with in our cargo.toml. All of these things have updates. So Yew, we're going to update Yew to 0.20. Yew router needs to update also. A lot of these things need to update at the same time because they're incompatible with the previous versions. They're updated to work with the new version of Yew. Stylist also needs to be updated. Here you are. Glue. Well, glue doesn't need to be updated, but it has an update, so let's go ahead and bring it up. And Yew.rs. This also needs to be updated because there's a new version of that. Okay. So green across the board, that's great. We're going to run into a few little problems here, though. So we're going to let Rust Analyzer run a little bit. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and set up our terminal. We're going to run a trunk serve, but of course it's going to have some problems. As soon as it finishes compiling, we already have Rust Analyzer telling us we have 9 errors, which that doesn't seem to be too bad right now. But let's sort of go through these and see what we have. So first of all, this, okay, so BB link here. So this is in our choose style sheet. This struct takes 0 lifetime arguments, but we gave it a lifetime. So style source doesn't look like it requires this anymore. Okay. Now, I hesitate to go a little bit too far into this. Let's see, form on submit. Oh, on submit has changed. Let's see, let's find one of these, live.rs maybe. Here we are. No, that's the render one. That's the router. I'm surprised. Where is it? I think that it's in main, I believe. So this Yew startup, it's not even looking at this yet because it hasn't found it. So one of the problems is that Yew now has server-side rendering, and to know which one you want, you have to enable it with a feature. So let's go ahead and create a new terminal here. I'm going to do a Yew add, Rust cargo add Yew, cargo add Yew. And we see now we have CSR, hydration, and SSR. So SSR is server-side rendering. CSR is client-side rendering. So we want to add that as the feature. So we're going to do capital F, CSR. To me, that's just a nice way of, an easy way of adding now that we have this feature CSR added here. This is going to add a few more errors for us, which is a good thing because now we're actually diving into the real stuff. So now I feel a lot more comfortable jumping into these. Okay, so on submit, you expected a function submit event. So previously we had this as a focus event. So it looks like Yew has changed this from a focus event to a submit event. So we can change that, submit event. Okay, well, this file is actually done. Let's go to the next problem. No method named route found for struct glue history location. Okay, so, well, actually this is use location. So use location has, I believe, changed a little bit. We go into, right, so for Yew router, let's go take a look at this. So if we go creates.io, router, think it's Yew router like this. Where is your? I think it's in the repository, and I think we can see the change list. Where's all your, oh, it might be in the releases. Releases, let's take a look at that. Okay, so we have Yew agent. This is the full Yew stack. So this is Yew router. Oh, so okay. This doesn't have the change log for it. I believe that it's actually Yew.rs's website. They have an upgrade guide, migration guide here for Yew router from 0.16 to 17. Okay, so Navigator API. The history API has been replaced with the Navigator API. This is a use location instead of use history. Okay, so that's not exactly the same. Now this is not saying no method named routes found for glue history location. So I'm gonna comment that out so I can sort of see what it is, and we're gonna replace it. Use current route equals. So use history is not showing me that this still exists. If I try to run it, yeah, cannot find use history, and I cannot import it. So this is no longer in existence. What do we have? So we have use, callback, context, use location. So use did I use history? I want use location. Okay, so we unwrap Yew. That gives us a location here. Now I want to get the current route off of it. What do I get? The current routes is going to be where are you? Let's see, for the route we want the URL route. When I point up, I'm thinking like at the URL bar, right? Like we want the actual route for that. Oh no, we want the route for here. Okay. That's what it is. We want to know what the current route is. So maybe use location isn't right. Maybe there is another use that we can use. There's use navigator. That could be it. Oh, use route. So we want to unwrap Yew, and then this probably takes, I'm just going to guess. I believe this is going to take the route. And that gives me a route here. Okay, so that replaces Yew. Excellent. One more problem here. Cannot find use history in this scope because I believe this is the one that was talking about like there's a use navigator now. The history API has been replaced with the navigator API. So so I believe it's going to be use navigator. We unwrap that. That gives us a navigator. Now down here, it's saying that this history, which was the navigator, mismatch types expected a reference, found a route. Okay, so can I give you just a reference? Yeah, okay, that seems to work. Excellent. Next problem. Cannot find function use history. Okay, so back to the same thing. We now know, oh, and you know what? I want to clean this up a little bit. We know how to solve this problem. This is going to be a use navigator. And you're going to be a reference. Okay, No function or associated item named render found for struct. Right, okay, so switch here, and they actually mention this here. The switch render is no longer needed. The switch component now accepts a closure of function routable to HTML as the render function directly. So this entire thing, not really needed. Now it's just going to be render equals that switch. Type mismatch. Expected function signature fn route found. Oh, 4. Maybe not switch. Let's go find the router. So I want this. Oh, you know what? You take in a ownership of this route. And that works. So that makes you happy here. However, back in here, I noticed we have a couple issues. Type Yew.32 cannot be dereferenced. Oh, right, because now we own this. We don't need to dereference that out to get the results. We just can get the ID directly. Excellent. Okay, so you're happy. Unresolved import, use history. Yeah, we don't need you anymore. We're going to have a lot of warnings too. I'll deal with those when we get to them. Can I find function use history? Yes. Okay, so this is the use navigator. And we'll probably have, okay, so add task is upset. Add task is 2Rs, right? Okay, so first of all, push, need to be a reference. You need to be a reference. Arguments to this function are incorrect, expected, mutable reference, found a dispatch store. Okay, so this is now talking about Yew.rs. So we have this add task here. Where does that come from? Add task. Oh, that's all the way up there? I guess so. It's the main. It's this. Oh, look at this. We're trying to pull in add task and add task here. I'm going to rename this to component, and that way it can't get confused by which version of the function to use. And that actually seems to have solved that problem. Okay, use history. So this is use navigator. And push a reference. And then for you, okay, so we have on submit, you're now a submit event. So on submit, here's our on submit, you are a submit event. And we don't need you anymore. Okay, next up. No unresolved import, use history. Yes, we don't have that anymore. We don't need that history. We do have an error down here. We don't have an error up there. Okay, so that's just an error down here. Use history. So this is going to be a use navigator. And then you are a reference. Okay, cannot find function use history. Okay, again, same thing. Use navigator. And okay, so push. This is going to be a reference here. Use history. This is a use navigator. Another push with a reference. And then on submit, that needs to be a submit event. Okay, so here's our on submit. So you are a submit event. Excellent. Okay. Cannot find type HTML in this scope. Okay, so I want to return HTML. Why can't we find that? We have a use. I have a Yew prelude, hey, you should be able to find that if I do Yew prelude, is, let me try renaming that. No, okay, so that's not like it's a similar name being used somewhere else. Can I find, okay, so what's going on? So can I find type HTML in the scope? Not found in the scope, which is strange because we're bringing in the prelude. And when I try to do a command dot, it doesn't give me the option of auto importing it. There's nothing else here that's yelling at us. Let's try. Okay, rewrote it and hit save, and it's perfectly fine. All right, I'll take it. Okay, next up, use history. This doesn't exist. Let's take you out, and that history we don't need either. We have this, okay, use history. This is gonna be a use navigator, and then we're gonna have a push somewhere. Here it is, with a reference. Excellent. We're down to just one here. Mismatch types. Okay, so store. Okay, so what have we got going on here? So mismatch types, expected a struct RC store store, found a store. Right. So the dispatches have changed a little bit with the new version of Redux. So if I let's comment this out while we go through this. What we can do is we can say I want to do dispatch dot reduce. Now I have the option of doing reduce mute. So if I just do reduce on its own, and we have just a function here which like store that, I believe it shows us now that this is an RC store. But if I change this to a reduce mute, then we actually just get a mutable reference to the store here, and then we can just update it and it magically works. So let's do that. Okay, back to you. So we're gonna switch you to reduce mute. We're gonna have our store. Okay, that's excellent. That's good. Borrow a moved value. Okay, so priority. Now it's a moved value. So where's priority set? So we have let priority is this string here. Test priority clone. Okay, so that's good. So we have a priority here, and I'm trying to use another priority here. It looks like it's moved here, I bet. So let's try cloning this. Now that should make that happy. Cannot find function start app. Okay, so this is actually in the guide too. If we go to Yew to 19 to 20, Yew render here. So this is the new way to start up the applications. So we do this Yew render, give it the type that we're going for, and then we have new, and then we can run render on that. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So we're gonna have Yew render. Now we only get this render if you brought in the feature for CSR. If you forgot that feature, you will not find the render at all, and that's a reminder to go add it. We have to give it the app here, and then we're going to create a new render, and then from that new render, we now want to run the render method. Okay, no more warnings, no errors. Let's go to Cypress and just see is everything still working. So if I rerun the test. Some things aren't working here. So let's see. Expected span to not exist in the DOM. So what's going on? Should be able to create an account. So when I create an account, so I visited that, I went there, I typed all this stuff in, that seems to be fine. I then try to get the create account button, and I expected it to not exist in the DOM, and it still did. So let's see if we can recreate that. So I'm gonna come back. Let's just log out. So if I click create account, yeah, so we create a new account, and this create account should be gone because, well, I'm here, right? Or it didn't log me in. Let's investigate. What's going on? Network? Let's try this again with create account. Maybe it's just not actually creating an account for us. So we do this is most likely an option. Yes, this is the option to find out whether or not we can make this request. And this is our post. So if we take a look at this, we are for a request. Okay, so we send in our password and our username. The response we get, oh, it looks like we got the correct response here. So we got everything that we wanted back. So that seems, so it's not like it's failing to make the response now. Now this, how does that work? Those buttons, I believe, are in the navbar. We have the nav right. Here is the welcome username. Oh, here's the create account. Here's the login. If not is logged in. Okay, so if not is logged in. So that must mean that we still think that we are logged in because otherwise these should have shown. No, wait, we is logged in. So it's not. So they're still showing here. So we are still a false on is logged in, which means that we can't find a token in here. Is logged in is a function. Is that a function? It must be because we're calling it like a function. The task edit buttons are not there. These are, yeah. Let's see. So one thing I want to do is I want to dump out what we have in local storage because or is it local storage? I want to dump out what we have in a store. So we know that these are still showing. So maybe what I can do, probably only like dump one thing out at a time. Let's, we can take a look. So if this is logged in, okay, so I take just the token stir. I want to see the entire storage if possible. Where do we have that? We have style sheet. Okay, so this is the nav bar itself. Okay, so here's our Yew store. So we have access to the store right here. We have a logout on click. We didn't click the logout button. I almost want to do this with like a use effect or something, so that way every single time it updates, I can then just sort of debug and see what that is. Let's do that. We'll use a use effect. This is, I don't think that anything comes in here. We're going to do stuff each time it re-renders, and then we have to return a new function here, which, yeah, we return just an empty body like that, and semicolon. Okay, so I want to move a copy of this store inside. do a let's wrap this in a block too. Open, close Yew. Okay, so let store equals store.clone. So the store is only going to exist inside of this block here. We want to take a look at what it is. It's an RC store, so we can do the entire borrow thing to get it out of it. That's going to be fine. So I want to, let's see. I wonder if I can glue like a toString it or something. Glue console log. Let's see how simple this is going to be. So let's store dot want to borrow. What can I do? Are you not going to help me, REST Analyzer? I think I can borrow. Fine, I'll do this over here. It's very temporary. I'm not sure exactly what this is, so I want to see if, can you help me at all? Oh, I want a semicolon here. Stop trying to be too helpful. Okay, so no method named borrow found for an RC. What was the thing for RCs? I think that might be a ref cell thing. Oh, I might just have access to it. So we have the error message, filter options, sort options, tasks, token. Okay, so we have all of this stuff. This is fine. Okay, this is great. Then in that case, can I debug print? Let's try it. If I do a filter, no, I want to format. Let's try formatting. Not that. I want that. I want to debug print the store. Does not implement debug. I wonder if I can tell it to implement debug. Okay, so we have store and source. So here's our store itself. Can we derive debug? Yes, we can. The task doesn't implement debug. So let's go over here and tell you, okay, you need to implement debug. And okay, you're happy now. And then I want to take this S and log that out. Okay, excellent. You need to implement debug. Okay, no errors. We haven't done any logical changes, so not terribly surprising. So if I hit refresh, here's our entire store. So that's not necessarily great, but it works. Let's see. So our username. I don't know if this is easy for you to read. Yes. Okay. So we have nothing in here, but if I create an account, let's do a new account again. I didn't see this refresh for that. So the store, I don't think updated. And so we don't have a username. We don't have a token. The use effect should cause it to come back and like reprint this out every single time that component got updated. So if this component up here is not updating, that's because the store didn't update. So that explains that. Let's go and see where that's happening. So we probably need to trace this. So what do we need? What happens? Let's go find. First of all, let's close you down there. Let's open up. Okay, so we have our not tasked buttons. I want the nav bar. Okay, so we have the nav bar. When I click create account, it is a link that takes me to create account. So I want to go to the pages for create account. When we submit, so on submit, we dispatch, we move. Okay, so we use the navigator history. We spawn local. We then call create account, and then we go home after this finishes. Okay, here's create account. I'm surprised it didn't bring me down here. Okay, create account. We take in the username and password. So something I like to do when I'm debugging something like this, just go very slowly through it, methodically, try not to like miss anything. Let's make sure that well, actually, you know what? We know that this this request out works because we saw in the network tab of the browser, we saw the request going out with the username and password, and we saw the response coming back in with the token and the user information. So that is working. So we know that this works here. And so potentially the JSON fails, although this should crash, right? Because we are unwrapping if the JSON actually truly fails. Now this responds back out with an auth response. Did I save this? I don't know what I changed. I did return and then I undid that. Okay, so create account. This comes back with a result with the auth response. We then go home and then I do the login reducer here. I think maybe we should do the login reducer first. And every change, I just want to test to see if that makes a big difference. So I want to come back to here, trying to create account. That didn't seem to make a difference here, so I doubt it's going to make a difference in the test. Okay, so where was that? That was create account. We're doing a login reducer. Let's come into here and make sure that this is doing what we expect it to do. So login reducer, reduce mute. This function, so the fn_once has to return the store after it's been changed. So we set the store username and we set the token. Okay, so one thing I am interested in here is console log. Can we see what this is? So this is a login reducer. I want this to be well, I can actually do probably like a format. And I want just the entire store at this point. I don't need to take ownership of it in case it yells at me about that. Okay, so create accounts. Okay, so here's the login reducer store. We have a username here. We have the token. Okay, so it's making its way into the store, but then this component isn't refreshing, isn't updating. Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer here. We're starting to understand a little bit more about what's going on. Now we're returning this store here. That's fine. That goes back to the login reducer. Okay, so that goes back to login. So then we go to history push home. Okay, so we go home. And then things should sort of update for us, right? Like everything just sort of should work. Now, I wonder if something is not updating for us here. Let's see. Go home. I think I know where the problem is. So we're not getting, let me log out, create account. Okay, so we're not getting this information here. We are getting, it's not refreshing our store. If we go and take a look at the dispatch itself, here's this login reducer that we're having. And so we did update this to use reduce mute. That's great. Something I'm noticing here though is this reduce mute, it takes in 2 lifetimes here, but it returns this R, which is not the same as this S. And I'm returning the store, which is, well, the S. So let's not do that. And also let's not clone the store here too. I didn't notice that when I first took a look at it. That seems to work. Let's go back in here and try this again. So do create account. Hey, that seems to work. Okay, so as a review again, we didn't need to change anything except where the login reducer was incorrectly, well, first cloning the store, which, I mean, it's probably going to put the, it's going to put all the data in the wrong store itself. And then we're trying to return the store, which is also incorrect. Okay, so let's, now we have some update things there. Let's go back to our nav bar. We can remove this use effect. We don't need it anymore. And we have 2 warnings. Let's get rid of those. Okay, so the store dispatch. Oh yeah, I was in between the little cutscenes. I was playing around with whether or not it was this dispatch. I believe that the store dispatch is fine. So put that back. And I don't need this deref. Okay, so let's log back out again. Try this again. Yeah, okay, and that is working. Those buttons went away. So back to Cypress again and rerun all of our tests. Let's see how far we get. Everything's working so far. And then we're back onto the error message. Oh, and the error message displays. It found it. We have that really long wait, but that it's working. It was able to find everything. So what have we done? Well, we have updated our project to use Yew 0.20. But before I finish, I have one last thing to sort of check, because I have a vague suspicion from when I've worked on this in my personal projects that we have a problem lingering here that is really hard to see. And that's going to be because we're using stylist to style all of our components. Take a look at this. In this div here, we have this class stylist. Okay, that seems to be fine. And then we just have source components. Or what? No, that can't be right. So now inside of our classes, we now have routes to the files, almost like a debug type thing. That's not right. What's happening here? Well, stylist updated, and when stylist updated, the way that we create the classes has to update just slightly in order for it to work still. So for this specific one here, so this is source components organisms navbar, line 17. Well, it tells us exactly where to go. So let's go back to navbar again. Well, we know it's line 17. So here's where we create our style sheet. I'm doing this as CSS. What I want to do is create a style new. And we're going to have to unwrap this. And we have to bring in style. If we do that, and we're going to come back to here, now this div no longer has that sort of like source in here. So we need to fix all of these wherever we're using the CSS macro. Okay, not that big of a problem. I did have to check because at first when I first saw this, I was like, did I have this problem before? No, it wasn't a problem before. It was working the way we expected it to work before. They've just sort of changed it where now you have to combine CSS with style. So let's do a search. So I want to search for anywhere where I'm using CSS, open parentheses, and okay, so that's all of these. Okay, let's go in and we'll just fix these one by one. So we have a style. We have a lot of styles to fix here, so let's go ahead and fast forward through the rest of these. Okay, we do have a warning. Unused style source. Okay, great. We're happy with that. No more warnings. And if we come back to here, all of our classes now have the appropriate class. We don't have weird debug lines like references to our code. That's just like weird and not a good practice generally. But okay, this is still running. Let's run our test one last time to make sure that we didn't break anything during that update. And here we go. And everything is still looking good. If we reach to the end, then I'm going to declare this a success. And we have updated our code from Yew 0.19 to Yew 0.20, along with all of the other sort of libraries that have to go along with it. And there we go. Okay, the test message, the error message is still working, and it's going to find that after its wait. So thank you again so much for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Bye.